In the last video, we examined the Vilna Gaon's interpretation of the phrase Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam as a sort of package deal. Now we're going to go back to analyzing each word on its own, like we have been in the first several videos. So today we're analyzing the phrase Elokeinu, our God, and I think we need to stop and just appreciate the absurdity of the phrase. I mean, how can we use the possessive in relation to Hashem and say He's our God? I mean, isn't He the God of everyone? So I think there's two answers you could take just logically. What does it mean that Hashem is our God? So either it's referring to the fact that we relate to Him in a certain way that no one else does, or we're referring to the fact that He relates to us in a certain way that no one else does. So with that in mind, let's look at the Abudraham's interpretation. He says, our God is based on the pasuk, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem, your God, who took you out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slaves. You shall not have other gods before me, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu declared. And it's based on Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, which Israel declares. So you see, it's both of them, right? Is God relates to us in a certain way, that's what it means by our God, and we relate to Him in a certain way, that's what we mean by our God. God relates to us in a certain way, so it says it in the pasuk right there that He took us out from the land of Egypt. I associate to this pasuk in Dvarim, has any God ever miraculously come to take for himself a nation from amidst a nation with challenges, with signs, with wonders, with war, with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, and greatly awesome deeds, such that as everything that Hashem, your God, did for you in Egypt before your very eyes? No nation has ever experienced such a thing. This is something that Hashem did uniquely for the nation of Israel. Regarding Hashem being our God in Shema, so Rashi's explanation comes to mind, or the explanation Rashi cites. What does it mean, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad? Hashem, who is our God now, but is not the God of the nations, will one day be Hashem Echad, will be one Hashem. For then I will, he quotes a pasuk, for then I will change the nations to speak a pure language, so that they will all proclaim the name of Hashem to worship Him with a united resolve. And it is stated, on that day Hashem will be one and His name will be one. So right now, we are the only ones who recognize Hashem's oneness, and the other nations don't. But one day Hashem will be recognized by everybody. So right now He's our God, but one day He will be everyone's God in the sense of who recognizes Him. So I was thinking about these, the Abudraham's linking of these two psukim here, and I was thinking, well, why does He even bring in the first pasuk? I mean, the pasuk doesn't say Elokecha, it says Elokeinu. So my mind would just go to Shema, not the first pasuk. So I was thinking, is there some relationship between these two psukim, between Anochi and Shema? So my mind went to the Sefer HaMitzvos in the mitzvah of Yichud Hashem, of God's oneness. So the Rambam says, the second mitzvah is the mitzvah in which we have been commanded regarding Emunas HaYichud, which according to the Rambam in the Mora Nevuchim 150, Emunah means to have conviction based on knowledge. So the mitzvah regarding rational conviction in the oneness of Hashem, namely that we be rationally convinced that the maker of existence and its first cause is one, in accordance with the statement, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. In an abundance of midrashim you will find, they say, Chazal say, in order to unify my name, in order to unify me, and many more like these. The meaning of these statements is that indeed, His taking us out from slavery and His doing with us what He did of the kindness and beneficence was in order that we arrive at a rational conviction in oneness, for we are obligated in this. So there the Rambam supplies us with a bridge between Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Hoteisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim and Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Namely, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim in order that we be a nation that recognizes His oneness. And if you contextualize this with the full arc of the bris that got us into Mitzrayim in the first place and took us out. So, Hashem promised to Abraham that his descendants would be a nation that would carry on His ideas and His legacy and His way of life, which ultimately centers around God's oneness. And so that is the condition on which we were taken out of Mitzrayim. So that, I think, is what we should have in mind when we say Elokeinu, keeping both in mind Anochi Hashem Elokecha and Shema. One last tidbit, which segues into tomorrow's topic. The Rambam concludes by saying they often say the mitzvah of oneness, and they also call this the mitzvah of malchus, kingship. For they say, in order to accept upon oneself the yoke of the kingship of heaven, Kabbalah's Ol Malchus Shemayim, which means to acknowledge the oneness of Hashem and to have rational conviction in it. So the Rambam says that when we talk about God as Melech, and we talk about accepting God's Malchus upon ourselves, God's kingship, what we're really referring to is acknowledging God's oneness. So we're not going to explain right now how that's the case, but I just wanted to show that there is a bridge from the word Elokeinu, which is talking about God taking us out of Mitzrayim so that we could have emunah in His oneness, and the next phrase in the bracha, which is Melech HaOlam, which is God's kingship. And this actually sets up very nicely for Rosh Hashanah, which one of the themes is Malchus. So let's aim to talk about Malchus tomorrow.